What's up, guys? I'm Alex.
I'm Jason. We're the Table Monkeys, and today we are going to continue to talk about anabolics in arm wrestling.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a good time to post one of these videos since it's kind of hot in the community these days, as Rob Vigent made another video bashing steroids and steroid users.
Yeah, and I think we just want to address that kind of quickly because there were maybe some, we just want to talk about some of the points he made and our sort of point of view on the topic, more or less. And basically the point is it comes down to genetic limit, right? And certain sports, it's just part of the sport once you get to a certain level, because the reality of all the world records and all the people competing at the top of these certain sports is that they reached their genetic limit a while ago, and now they're pushing way past that. And in order to do that, it requires some sort of PED.
Exactly. You cannot get to that level without the PEDs. So it really comes down to what your goals are. Do your goals require steroids, or do they not?
Yeah.
How committed are you to that goal?
Yeah.
And it's not a shortcut. It can be used as a shortcut, and we don't advocate it to be used that way. But if your goals require you to get way past your genetic limit, then there's no choice. You have to take them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, deadlifting 500 kilos or anywhere up close to that.
Or wrestling in the top elite level.
Yeah, exactly. Or being a bodybuilder, being 4% body fat at 200 plus pounds on a 5'8" frame. Like those certain things like that aren't happening without some sort of PED. But it doesn't mean that these people haven't pushed to their genetic limit first and then pushed past that. And the drugs may give you the ability to push past that, but you still physically, mentally, and in actuality have to push past it. It's not like these things are magic pills that you just take and then wake up the next day and you're a different person. That does not happen. And part of like what you just said, the point of this commitment, and maybe why Rob feels this way, is he's very open about arm wrestling being like a hobby to him, being more of like a fun thing that he does on the side. Well, it's not a hobby for Michael Todd or for Devin Larratt or some of these really top end guys. So if Rob really had, like, if the only way he made his money, if the way he put food on the table for his family was arm wrestling, maybe he would have a different outlook on it. And that's the only point that we're making, is this: it's not for everybody, and it's a serious commitment to get into, and we don't condone anybody doing it. But it is part of the reality of certain sports, and if you do want to get to a certain level, you should have that understanding. So like for me in powerlifting, I always wanted to get to a certain total, and I was like, if I can get to that total without anything, then I know that genetically I've got enough potential to maybe play with these guys up here if I actually got on a bunch of stuff. And for me, like, that didn't end up happening. And even for in arm wrestling, I tried to ride myself on just TRT as long as I could before it was sort of a requirement to go a little bit past that,
Exactly. But anyway, we are not doctors, so take everything we say with a grain of salt.
This is just our opinion, just our own experiences and point of view. But we did want to touch on the Rob thing real quick and just acknowledge it's not exactly a shortcut. I think you made the perfect analogy. He made this analogy of like getting across.
Going from East Coast to West Coast of the States. And then the other guy takes a plane. And you reach the same destination. That is a poor analogy because you're both reaching the same point. If you're a steroid
that's the shortcut method.
That's the shortcut method.
Which is not, we don't condone that. And if you do that, the chances that you can push past that with the same drugs becomes very less likely. So the more of that journey you do on your own, obviously the better, but the point is the destination.
The point is destination, right? If you're the steroid user in that situation, you're not landing at the same point. If you've done a lot of work naturally as well, you're crossing the ocean. You're in Japan.
Right? The reason you're getting on a plane is to get from the edge of the ocean to the next continent, where the guy on the horse and buggy, like, he's getting, or let's say a car, he's getting to that edge of the water, and then he's drowning his horses in the water every time trying to get across the water, because he doesn't need a horse and buggy anymore, he needs a plane. And that's the point, is that if you do it right, you're going to get to that natural limit or close enough to it that now it's time to work and push past that. and it requires all that work and all that dedication to do it.
Yeah.
So,
anyway, in this video,
we're going to talk about other injectables.
Yes.
So
we talked about testosterone in our last video, card up in the window. That's kind of the main substance that almost all cycles will contain, right? It's the most natural of all
most
substances.
Bioidentical is the term that's mainly used, meaning that it is your body 100% produces it. It's the reason, like, the number one thing that's used medically, because if you're a male who is starting to lose his testosterone and needs to go on TRT, it's the same, like you compared it to insulin, which I think is a very fair comparison, and it's very taboo nowadays, but in actuality it's not much different than that. It's like, yeah, you could, just go on naturally living with your insulin levels all fucked up, and eventually you're gonna die off because blood sugar's all fucked, and your body isn't working right anymore. Or you can take this shot and then you're going to live a lot longer, a lot happier. It's very similar, maybe not as drastic, but the effects of having low testosterone can be extremely detrimental to your health. So testosterone is definitely a route that a lot of people take just for medical reasons. But as Alex said, if you're going to go the route of actually like using PEDs for performance and for certain goals, testosterone basically should always be part of the base. And the main reason for that is because all of these other compounds we're going to talk about are what's called suppressive, right? So they're going to make your body shut down its natural production. So if you just go on EQ, for example, even though it's the closest one of all these injectables because it's from the testosterone family, it's still not going to produce the same results in your body as testosterone, so your body's going to get all fucked up, right? So you need a testosterone base to keep everything sort of balanced, and then you need to do your research and figure out what to add on top of that to get different results.
Right. So just to clarify, in this video we're going to talk about EQ, which is equipoise, Masterone, and Primo, which is primobolan.
Yeah.
Right. So these three are injectables. They're all somewhat similar to testosterone. And
they're all similar to each other. Like there's a lot of crossover in them. The first one we'll talk about is EQ, and that one's actually in the testosterone family. Like it's a derivative of testosterone, but it's actually a veterinarian drug. It was made for horses. So we just basically quickly want to talk about like the main pros and cons. Okay, so the pros with EQ, and again, these three, EQ, Masterone, and Primo, they have a lot of crossover, but we're going to try to explain why they're different and where you might use them differently. But EQ, it is sort of the most available, like the easiest one to get. A lot of people, it's one of the most popular in bodybuilding, so it's usually the first one that people kind of experiment with next. And where it's really going to like give you like what its benefits are going to be, it's going to increase your strength, it's going to increase your endurance because it has an EPO effect, like it increases your red blood cell count. It's going to have some effect on collagen synthesis, again because of the way that it affects estrogen. It's going to help your collagen synthesis, so tendons and joint strength, it's good for that. And it's going to give you overall size because it does have some water retention. It's similar to testosterone. Basically, the way they all are similar, like testosterone converts to estrogen, EQ converts at half the rate of testosterone, roughly, is like the math that you're supposed to kind of do when you're using it. So those are basically the pros of EQ. It's gonna definitely add strength and the endurance, and then why you're gonna want to use it for arm wrestling is because it is good for collagen synthesis.
And some of the cons are, one of the side effects it can give you anxiety, right? And then also because it is that veterinary drug, it's not pharma grade. So I mean that's a pro in a sense because it's cheaper, but it's less clean. So you don't know 100% what it is or if it's tainted with anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's a longer ester drug, right? So it takes a while to kick in and then a while to come out. So if you go on it and you realize, hey, this is giving me bad side effects, I don't like it, it's going to take a while for it to be out of your system. Yeah,
exactly. And the other thing with the not pharma grade is that there's not very many or basically no studies on humans. So everything that we know about it is pretty much anecdotal from like bro science and stuff. And then there are a couple studies that people have tried to get done, but they're so vague and inaccurate that it's hard to base anything off of them. So it's kind of the one that we know the least about, even though we kind of know the most about it.
Yeah.
As weird as that is.
But you've had a lot of experience with it. So did you?
Yeah, I used it a couple times.
Did you experience any of the anxiety side effects?
Yeah, so I did notice some of the anxiety, and one of the ways that I've heard to deal with that is because it's increasing your red blood cell count. It's going to increase your hunger, which is going to increase your ghrelin hormone, which is can increase your anxiety a bit. And because you've got all this extra sort of energy from the extra red blood cells, basically if you're not doing cardio and not using the energy, that's when it kind of builds up. Sort of like dogs with walks, you know, like if I don't walk my dogs enough, they get super anxious and just pent up and rowdy. But if I take them for enough walks, they're like calm and peaceful all the time. So it's sort of the same thing. I noticed that if I just added a little extra cardio, a couple extra walks, a couple extra sets, that kind of stuff, and the anxiety would subside. But I've also none of the things I've done have I done at a very high dose. Like with all these things, the best way to get into it is to start with the lowest effective dose. So basically, as soon as you feel it, like keep it at that dose until you don't really feel it anymore, and then slowly go up. And then you basically go up until you start to feel side effects. And then once you feel those side effects, then you cut back and you go, okay, that's my tolerable dose.
Yeah.
And you obviously do that with testosterone first, and then as you add other compounds, you can kind of try to play around with that, but you have to add them one at a time to do that, which as you get into this world, sometimes that can be a little difficult because you have like plans and aspirations of what you're going to do. But
that's the smart way to do it, right?
The smart way is, and I've tried to do that as much as possible to understand what each compound is doing. So yeah, EQ definitely felt the anxiety a little bit, but felt like it was something I was able to deal with if I managed it with effort and stuff.
Okay. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Let's talk about Masterone next.
Yeah, so Masterone is, so just quickly, like Alex said, it's a long ester for EQ. EQ, the actual drug is called boldenone, and then the ester on the drug, like we talked about in testosterone, for boldenone or equipoise, it's always basically the undeclinate, which is like a 14 to 21 day ester. Mm-hmm. And remember the ester, it's 5 times the ester before it's out of your system. So 25, that's 100 days before it's completely out of your system. So again,
that's why it's important to start with the lowest effective dose.
Exactly, yeah. And wait and know that understand that it's going to take some time before you feel it.
Yeah.
If you're on equipoise. Now, Masterone comes in 2 esters. It comes in an enanthate and a propionate. So if you remember from our testosterone video, enanthate is about 5 to 7 day ester, and propionate is like 1 to 2. I've only used Masterone propionate. Basically, the drug should be the same. Again, it's just how long it's in your system. But also with the longer esters, there's going to be a little bit more of a buildup, right? So like after you've been on Masterone and enanthate, even if you're on the same amount, let's say 350 a week, whether you're on enanthate or Masterone, after a month, the Masterone and enanthate is going to feel a lot stronger,
right?
Because it's compounding more in your system by that point. So I've only used Prop, and again, so to go over the benefits from Masterone, it's going to increase your strength. Different than EQ. EQ makes you stronger like over time because it's adding muscle and it's building collagen. It's just making you stronger. But Masterone, especially the propionate, which is so quick, you can basically feel it almost like a pre-workout. So if I take a Masterone shot in the morning and do my workout in the afternoon, I can 100% feel the added aggression and androgenic response to kind of fire on the next cylinder a little bit for that workout. But it's not adding strength over time because it's not building muscle the same way.
Would the enanthate one act more like EQ in that regard?
It might, but only because you're constantly driving, like not because you're actually building the tissue the same way. It's still acting differently. It's still acting differently. Yeah. Like EQ is going to make you stronger because it's building more tissue or padding you with moisture and water retention, which is going to make you stronger, where Masterone is driving your sympathetic nervous system and making you just fire on more cylinders. So the other positive with it is aesthetics. Because of the way it's so androgenic, it dries you out, it makes you, it blocks estrogen. So where we said EQ converts at 50%, Masterone is actually more of an AI, so it sort of blocks the conversion of estrogen. And because of all that, it really reduces water retention. So that's where it makes you look nice and lean.
Yeah.
And it's also, so that other positive is estrogen management. A lot of people use it instead of using an AI like Arimidex or another oral AI. They'll just use Masterone on top of their test to balance out the estrogen that they might be getting from the test.
Right. But so some of those pros end up being cons, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Because of that lack, the water
Retention,
the lack of water retention.
Exactly.
Your joints can get dry.
Yeah.
And when they become dry, they become brittle, more prone to injury. So
Yeah.
not really great for arm wrestling, right? We want strong joints, strong soft tissue.
Yeah.
And
that's going to be definitely, like you asked with the enanthate, that's where the enanthate would be much worse, like, because it's going to compound.
Yeah.
So the chances are, A, you're going to be on it for a long time, and B, it's going to be compounding that drying out effect. So at the end of an 8-week cycle of Masterone and enanthate, you go to do a, if it were arm wrestling, for example, maybe you go do a heavy curl or something, and you're dried out, you're very prone to getting one of those shitty, pec or bicep tears. And you see those a lot in the bodybuilding world with guys, especially when they're super lean, and when they discuss why it is, it's usually because they were on a ton of AIs and their estrogen was just tanked because they wanted to look shredded as fuck. But then it makes your shit kind of brittle.
Yeah, and it also makes you a bit more aggressive. So maybe that even factors into the injury proneness.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Because it's a DHT derivative, so we'll throw up that picture of the testosterone tree. It can also impact hair, so it could start promoting hair loss.
Yeah, so between Masterone and Primo are the two that really affect hair loss. I definitely noticed a lot more thinning with Masterone. Now, I don't know, for me, like my hair is still good, but when I was on Masterone, like for an extended period of time at a decent dose, I did notice, like when I was taking a shower, that I was getting a lot of extra hair in my hands and stuff, but that seems to have come back, which I know is not really supposed to happen. So I don't know if I was actually losing hair follicles. I don't know how that was actually happening, because I seem to be pretty good with the hair genetics, which is beneficial, but I definitely noticed more hair loss with Masterone than with Primo, is the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, interesting.
Even though they're supposed to be similar. So the cons with Masterone: hair loss, definitely dries you out, and it can give you extra aggression. So if you're prone to getting a little too aggressive or snappy and stuff, especially if you're on the enanthate and you're on it for an extended period of time, because it's just always pushing your sympathetic nervous system, you're kind of always in that fight or flight mode. So you're just very ready to fight all the time, which is where the strength comes from. Is you take it right before the gym or before a heavy lift, especially when you're dieting, when you're in a deficit, and it's going to drive you past being hungry and tired and just make you want to get the work done.
After you take the Masterone, you go to the gym and you get all that energy and aggression out. Do you come out of the gym feeling more relaxed and calm and ready to kind of act like a normal human being?
Yeah, I mean, I've never felt it so much where I'm like where I'm actually like angry or aggressive. I think it's just something that people can get to, but I do feel like in the set, you feel that like where you're feeling your limit, and then you have that like fuck you moment, you know, like that is right there all the time. But I never feel it like I've never felt it like being edgy or snappy.
Right.
And I guess so it can also increase sex drive, which could be the other. So you might not get more aggressive, you might just get more aggressive. You know what I mean? So maybe that's where
I could go on the pro side.
Yeah, you can put that on the pro side probably.
All right, so up next, Primo.
Yeah, Primo, and if you've done any research in this world and stuff, you've probably heard that Primo is the Primo. It's the Cadillac, it's the bomb, and there's, from my personal experience, a lot of truth to be said for that. So we'll go over the pros, and again, if you're thinking about this from an arm wrestling point of view, this is gonna sound pretty good. Really good for collagen synthesis because of the way it's managing estrogen. And then really good for endurance because it's got that same EPO effect that EQ has, where it's going to increase your red blood cell count. It's going to build pure muscle, so it's no water retention, and it's adding it's like adding tissue similar to EQ, but without water retention. And so it's very, very clean. Like if you do a Primo cycle and you gain 3 pounds of lean mass, you're going to basically retain that lean mass. Where like if you do NPP or EQ, you might gain 15 pounds, but it's not lean mass, like it's 80% water, you know?
Yeah.
So Primo's really good in that regard, and it's also basically always pharma grade. Like it's you do get some underground lab versions of it, but for the most part, it's pharma grade. So it's very clean. You notice it, like it's just low, like not as many side effects. The shots are smooth, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like it's just
and that
super
underground
clean
stuff. People will tend to like say it's Primo, but it's actually Masterone, right? So
or EQ because
EQ,
yeah,
because
like
similar.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right. So that's another reason why it's a really good idea to like try to get really a good source, but is try things separately so that you can feel the difference, like between EQ and Primo, or Masterone and Primo, or whatever the combinations are. So
yeah.
So
let's touch on the cons. So because it's pharma grade and it comes from, you know, a pharma grade lab, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
It's the most expensive steroid.
Yeah, it's basically basically the most expensive injectable.
And then also because it's pharma grade, it can be hard to find, right? You need a good source who's getting it from those labs, and you might not be in an area where there are labs close to you.
Mm-hmm. And even if you have a good source, they might not like be able to get it right away. Like it might take them a minute to get it. You know what I mean? So it's always it's always something that's harder to find. It's not like I said with EQ or tests, like you can get those all the time basically.
Yeah. And then because it's a DHT derivative, it's also going to promote hair loss and some mood swings. So it will probably depend on the person what kind of effect that'll have. But
yeah, I haven't noticed any mood swings on it. And I've done it at I've done 250 a week, 350 a week, and now 500 a week. So that's the one that I've kind of played with the most as far as like taking higher doses with. And yeah, I haven't noticed any moodiness from it. Again, the hair loss seems to be good. It's obviously it is expensive,
right?
But that's also depends on how long you're gonna run stuff. The ester on Primo is an enthate. It basically always comes in an enthate ester, so it's that 5 to 7 day ester. So it's going to take about 10 to 14 days before you start to feel it or notice it, like in its full effect. And same thing once you come off of it, it's going to take let's say 5. So it's going to take about a month before it's out of your system, more or less. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Cadillac for sure, and it is supposedly really good for collagen synthesis, and I've noticed that it seems to be doing its job. So yeah, Primo's the Primo, for sure. Not that we condone anybody taking any of these or that we're doctors or giving any recommendations, but yeah, that covers those three, and I guess you can kind of see how they might overlap. And where you might want to use them differently. So EQ and Primo are very interchangeable for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons. Actually, I'm going to throw a video up in the window here. This is Vigorous Steve giving his breakdown of boldenone versus primobolan. And basically, by the end of the whole video, he goes over every reason why EQ is sort of better, and then completely endorses Primo and says, but if he would never inject EQ again, he would only ever do Primo. And you have to watch the whole thing to kind of understand it. Mm-hmm. But it is kind of complex on that thing. And what it really comes down to for him is that whole veterinarian versus pharma grade. It's just that as much as people might like EQ, you don't really know what's going on. So that always kind of leaves like a gray cloud over your head. And so for me too, the couple times that I've done it, I would definitely choose either nothing or Primo, I think, at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I would never do EQ again, but I don't see the reason in it unless it's just a budget thing. And like I said, if that's the case, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. But it will make you stronger, like I said, but there's other things you can do in addition to the Primo that I think would be better, more effective. Like I would say might make more sense to do Primo as your cycle, and then use Masterone Pro for little bursts of strength when needed. So like for a big practice or a big lift or for a competition.
You wouldn't want to be on Masterone continuously because it's going to dry out
you
joints.
out. Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you use it for those little bursts, it could be effective.
And that dryness of the joints compounds over time. You wouldn't feel that as soon as you took that first shot.
No, yeah, for sure you won't feel that right away. That's going to take time of the joints being like dried out for the tendons to actually start to like get brittle and dry out themselves, right?
All right, so obviously testosterone is the base of almost all of your cycles, right?
Yeah, it should always be, yeah.
Would you ever in your cycle do all four or a combination of the
Yeah,
the four?
I think there's certain arguments to be made now because EQ and Primo are so, like even Steve covers that in his video, because they're so similar. Maybe you want to do a total of 500, so you do 200 Primo and 300 EQ because the EQ is cheaper, and the oil and everything, and that's how you work it out. And then maybe you're adding the Masterone in there to help deal with some of the water retention and the estrogen coming from the EQ. So there's obviously strategical ways to use all of them. I think what's sort of more modern now, or what a lot of people are talking about, as opposed to blasting one or the other really heavy, like maybe an older bodybuilding cycle might have been like a gram of test and a gram of Primo a week, and maybe what would be more effective would be like 350 test, 350 Primo, 350 EQ, 150 Masterone, like all four of them, which if you do that, that's still total exposure turns out to be way less than 2 grams. But your effects, like your overall benefits from it, might be very similar or better than the gram and the gram, and also the side effects are probably going to be a lot lower because each one of these things are going to give you side effects at different levels. So the idea of just turning up the volume, same thing, only harder, in this aspect, not always the best choice. You want to be selective and try to attack it from different pathways. So then, as we'll talk about later, there's so many different pathways that you can use to affect your performance. And it's about being strategic with that as opposed to just smashing away at one. I think might be the better route. But again, the best route is just don't do it at all.
Yeah, just don't do it at all, because we're not doctors and we don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
So, I think that is a great place to stop. That's the video. If you like the video, please like the video. Leave feedback down in the comments, share, subscribe, hit that bell,
all of those things.
And monkeys out.
Peace.